Hello and welcome to the Identity Podcast for this very exclusive thing for the Identity Podcast exclusives. That's right. Tonight, happy Earth Day, everyone. Don't forget, it is Earth Day, but every day is Earth Day, right? Today's just a great day to celebrate extra, to really focus on teaching, just teaching everyone education, and also continuing to go save the earth, right? Save the planet, sustainability, living sustainably, and just being smart, right? That's exactly what Earth Day is all about. But again, every day is Earth Day. Thank you again, as always, for tuning in, watching, and listening the Identity Podcast. Don't forget to go ahead and like us on all social media platforms at the Identity Podcast. And of course, check out our podcast available on all streaming platforms as well. And of course, if you love the Identity Podcast, well, guess what? You can sponsor us. Email us at press@findyouridnyc.com for more details, and we'll get back to you with that as well. Pretty great stuff as always. I'm Caleb, one of your co-hosts for the Identity Podcast, and I'm excited to do this quick intro as we get into a very, very fun, jam-packed night full of exclusives. We have 4 identity exclusives with some of our international guests from our environmental series to help us celebrate Earth Day. So let's ring in this beautiful holiday that is Earth Day, this great day is supporting the Earth, because that's here on the Identity Podcast. That's one of the biggest things we care about is helping save the Earth, right? Sustainability, living sustainably, and just being safe and smart. And of course, kind to our earth. So let's go ahead and get into things. Of course, we have 4 lots of fun, great, all-inclusive exclusives right here for the Identity Podcast. But let's go and get started with our first one, featuring Henry McKenzie. I hope you all enjoy it, and we'll be back with you later.
So many different industries,
Hello and welcome to the Identity Podcast. I am Caleb, one of your co-hosts for the Identity Podcast, and I'm so grateful to be here yet again with Henry McKenzie for an identity exclusive as we celebrate Earth Day. In honor of Earth Day, in preparation for Earth Day, we're having these different identity exclusive content to be able to promote throughout the entire week, and of course, to be able to put on our different pages such as Patreon and Spotify and so on and so forth. For all of you, our listeners, our viewers, and our subscribers, are so grateful for you. So once again, you are watching and you are listening to the Identity Podcast for this identity exclusive featuring Henry McKenzie, presented to you by Find Your ID NYC. Don't forget to check us out on all social media platforms. You can actually like the Identity Podcast on all social media platforms, and go ahead and check out our podcast on all streaming platforms such as Spotify and Apple Podcast. Of course, if you want to sponsor us, well, you can actually do that. All you have to do is email us. Email us at press@findyouridnyc.com, and we'll get back to you with more details on that matter. But very exciting stuff as I welcome Henry yet again on the show. Thank you, Henry, for coming back on. How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you. All good. How are you?
I'm good. I feel like it's been a really long day, and for me personally, it's only, the day's not that far into it, but it just feels like it's been a really long day, but things are good.
Oh, it's good. Well, I'll tell you, it's been a long week. On I think it was Tuesday morning or Monday morning, I woke up and we had snow here in the UK. I was like, what? And there was snow everywhere. So it was so bizarre. And then the snow melted by lunchtime, and now today it's like, what are we, a bit further along? It's a bit warmer now, but I thought, God, that must be climate change.
Really, though, and that actually is happening in the United States as we speak as well. There are different cities on the East Coast, especially the northern East Coast, such as like the Boston area, and I think up by Maine and everything, that are having snow as we speak. And then places around Chicago where I'm at, and it's a little on the chillier side, but still nice outside. Everyone's, t-shirts and hanging out and just laying on the grass and everything like that. But it really is, it shows that, climate change is a thing. And just the other day we had, very frigid temperatures, and I think next week is supposed to be really warm, like summer-esque temperatures. So I definitely feel that there. It just shows the climate change, and that's what we're here for, right? To talk about all these different things, to talk about the earth, sustainability, these,
eco-friendly lifestyles and to be able to talk about climate change and everything. And now you have a lot of interesting stuff to talk about. So why not fret and let's go ahead and get into it. But I did not mean for that to rhyme. But from there, yeah, you were mentioning to me about a book you've been reading.
Yes, that's right. So I just started reading Bill Gates' book, his new book, How to Avoid a Climate Disaster. I'm still in the first early part of the book, so I haven't finished it yet. But I mean, it's a really fascinating book, and I just think that Bill Gates kind of really sets out very clearly the problem that we have at hand, and he reminds us that the greenhouse gas emissions are really damaging to the planet, and why. So greenhouse gas emissions, is carbon dioxide, nitrous oxide, methane, emissions from burning fossil fuels. So many different industries contribute to the greenhouse gas emissions, and the problem that they cause is that they absorb and trap heat in the atmosphere, working in a similar way like a greenhouse works. And this is causing the planet to increase in temperature. And, so far we've raised the temperature at least 1 degree Celsius since kind of pre-industrial times. But really, if we don't reduce emissions, that will probably have between 1.5 and 3 degrees Celsius increase by the middle of this century. And then potentially 4 to 8 degrees Celsius by the end of this century. But to avoid that, we have to focus on getting to kind of net zero emissions by, I think it was 2050 or something. So it's still time to reverse this situation. But there's just so much that needs to be done to do it. And we just talked about these really bizarre weather patterns recently where we're almost experiencing like 4 seasons in like a week. But we'll just, continue to see hotter days, more extreme weather, sea levels will rise. And so, there's huge effects that will be created as a result. And I think what we have to remind ourselves as well is like fossil fuels are so pervasive and unfortunately touch our lives in so many ways, more than you realize. It's more than just like, driving your car or catching a flight. Any plastic product you have is made from petroleum, which is a form of fossil fuel. Any product that you eat, which has been grown using fertilizers, that releases gases into the atmosphere. If you have a car, so if whatever you put in your car, unless it's an electric vehicle, again, that's more emissions. The transport industry as a whole is huge polluter, so train, bus, aeroplane. And then also at home, so people don't think of their house as being a huge polluter, but I mean most houses have oil and gas boilers, or certainly in developed countries, to heat their houses in hot water. And in the UK, a UK household emits approximately 2.7 tons of carbon dioxide each year, which is actually about, in total, 14% of UK greenhouse gases come from houses, which is a similar level to cars, which is quite a shocking stat, I thought, because people just think of cars as polluters, but don't even consider their houses. So that was quite a revelation to find out. So then we decided at home to have remove our oil boiler and actually put a renewable energy system instead. So this house is powered by renewable energy. So we're trying to reduce our carbon footprint.
That's great. That's something that we all want to be able to do, and I wish I could I wish I could do that easily and everything, and that statistic is really interesting, especially in the UK with the household. Like, wow, that's crazy. You never would have thought, right? As you mentioned, especially compared to cars. We always think cars is a big polluter, but to know that your house can also be. But when you mentioned it, it also makes sense. That's the thing. Like it shocks you, but for me personally, it made sense when really thinking about all the different things that you have in your house and the fuels that you're using, and with the boiler, and most things that are located in the basement or anything like that in your house. It makes sense. It's kind of depressing to know.
Yeah, I mean, the good news is that there are a lot of, there's been some real advancements in renewable energy technology. So there's a lot of solutions. I think the challenge is that some are quite expensive. So we invested in a ground source heat pump, which the initial cost was quite a lot, but the UK government have an incentive scheme at the moment where if you qualify for it, actually they provide you financial support. So over the first 7 years, they actually pay you back a chunk of money. So it kind of covers about 2/3 of the cost, which is great, but you still need the money up front to pay for it. But it was quite an operation. So I'll tell you all about it if you like. But essentially, we have they basically dug up the garden and inserted these giant loops of pipe, which were they're vertical. There was 300-meter holes of vertical pipe which loop around, and then attached to this thing that looks like a giant fridge in this garage that we converted into a plant room. But essentially what a ground source heat pump does is it pumps liquid around this kind of loop of pipe that goes underground. And then the heat from the ground is absorbed into the fluid in these pipes. And then that passes through the heat exchange inside the heat pump, which is like this sort of giant fridge thing. And then the heat energy is then effectively concentrated and used to heat your house. So it kind of works like a fridge in reverse. So it's a really sort of very top line explanation of it, because it is it's quite technical, but you only need a small amount of electricity to power the heat pump. So depending where you get your electricity from, that could be green electricity, so then you're 100% renewable. So it saves us a lot of money off our energy bills now, so we don't need to pay. And before we had an oil boiler.
Mm-hmm.
So it was quite a operation getting it all together, but now we have like real peace of mind that every time you have a shower or make a coffee or whatever, or heat the house, we're not contributing towards climate change. So we've really kind of reduced our carbon footprint here. Mm-hmm. So and also we've spent a lot of time getting ourselves immersed into the ground source heat pump industry. And there's also lots of different variations you can have as well. You can have air source heat pumps as well. So it's not in the ground, it's on the side of your house. So it extracts heat from the air and use that to heat your hot water and heat your house as well. So there's a lot of really clever technology out there.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of just really fascinating things, I think, going on right now in the world, especially when trying to become sustainable and focusing on going green and everything. I feel like that's a very big constant at the moment, especially as something to kind of go back just real quick, something you mentioned earlier, talking about how 2050, right? Reaching a certain number before we could really turn back the clock and go back and everything. And that's something right before the pandemic. A very popular topic in the world was this sense of, if we don't do something now, we are not going to be able to reverse it. And I remember this very clearly. I remember this topic was a very popular topic of conversation throughout my friend groups, throughout, I think, just social media and throughout the globe in general. And I think this topic is one that is quite right, but also it needs to be debated, or not debated, it needs to be talked about. It needs to be discussed. That's the word, discussed. But it's one that I feel with technology, we've been able to grow with our technology, especially in the pandemic. We've been able to grow with it. We've become closer with it, and we've relied on it heavily, right? And from there, we've been able to take technology, and I think we are having, as we speak, we're having more and more kind of epiphanies and revolutionary things happening with technology that's allowing us to get closer to this sense of, hey, we might be able to, hopefully in the future, not necessarily near future, but in the future, be able to reverse this and be able to go back. But at the same time, it can't just be a group of people. It has to be every single one of us. That's really important. And so it's great to know that there are individuals that are, such as yourself, Henry, that are, replacing the boiler and everything. And it's great to know that a government is incentivizing it. And different governments throughout Europe as well are doing like the recycling incentives and stuff like that, which is a phenomenal idea. I mean, I wish I thought of that, but it's certainly something that also makes you kind of worry for those that aren't doing anything a part of it,
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes it just comes down to cost, really, because I mean, obviously,
Yep.
our ground source heat pumps are expensive, so we were in a position to be able to do that. But I think there are still small things that you can still do. Like, for example, your car, maybe walk or cycle more, use your car less. When you come to change your car, maybe you look at, can you buy an electric vehicle instead? Or do you need a car at all? Can you just lease one when you rent one when you need one? And then the other thing that gets me here is, right, in traffic jams, people just leave their engine on. Just switch your engine off if you're there for however many minutes waiting for, whatever's going on with the traffic. And don't leave your engine on when you're stationary, because the amount of people I see just sitting in their cars on their mobile phones with the engine running, and like they've just dropped somebody off, or they're just about to pick somebody up, or I don't know what they're doing. But it's just terrible terrible pollution. So it's just little things like that I think you could start doing. And just being mindful.
Exactly, being mindful. I love that. Being mindful and just kind of realizing what you are doing, being accountable, right? I think is another great thing too. Being mindful and being accountable, because I can't tell you how many people I see doing that, sitting in their car and they're on a phone call and they're just sitting in their car with it running. It's like,
I know.
why? You're not moving. Like, why? Like, if it's nice outside, roll the windows down, turn your car off. If it's kind of cold, then just bundle up and turn your car off. And you can't say, well, it's cold. It's like, but you're the one sitting in your car.
I know. Do you know, my dad is great. He's really bold. He's a retired lawyer. He just goes up, bangs on the windows, like, turn your engine off. Turn your engine off. And then they go, oh, okay, and turn their engine off. I was like, oh, I don't know if I've got the balls to do that.
A scary guy comes up to say,
yeah, turn engine off.
See, I'm sometimes bold. I have my moments, and I've not always. Unfortunately, I've never done it with cars, but I definitely did it. Actually, just a couple weeks ago, I was walking about the city, and I saw this guy drop some trash. Like, I don't think I couldn't tell if he saw it originally, but then he like saw that he was missing something and looked back and was like, went like that and just kept walking. And so I picked it up, went up to the guy and said, here's your trash. He goes, oh, it's trash. I said, I understand. Here's your trash. Take it and throw it away.
Good for you.
Thank you. He didn't seem to be very happy with me. He took it, but
yeah, it's appalling, isn't it? Just let your stuff fly everywhere.
Exactly. That's something that I'm very fortunate to know that, in my family especially, that's something that we are very active about. Like, we pick up trash, and even if that trash has been lying on the ground for hours, we have no clue who dropped it. We'll pick it up and we'll make sure that it goes where it's supposed to go, right? Because that's the least we can do. something as small as that. It's the sustainable waste, being smart with trash pickup and making sure that we're recycling and knowing what needs to be recycled and making sure that it's clean and washed. Because obviously with recyclables, they're very particular, right? It's a very particular process. And you have, double streams and single streams and all this stuff. That's a whole nother topic. But it's yeah, I think it's great to know that there are individuals such as yourself, such as your father, such as maybe me or other people in my family and friends that are able and are willing to go up and say something. Because if you really think about it, saying something like that will hopefully teach that person that, hey, I can go and do something as small as shut your engine off, or pick up the trash, recycle it, or whatever it may be, that will hopefully show people that we can, in fact, we can reverse this, we can save the planet, and we can also we can be green and promote a green economy and a green lifestyle as well. And I think it's great. And sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, sorry, I was just agreeing. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's great to know that there are individuals out there that are doing this. And I think one of the greatest things about having this environmentalism series is the fact that I'm meeting those individuals every single week on the show. I'm meeting these individuals that are doing amazing things, but they're also doing something new and in the environment and with sustainability and everything. I mean, we've had sustainability editors for like different magazines. We've had an eco influencer. We've had yourself, and we've had we had someone who is all about sustainable waste, trash pickups, and we've had activists and advocates, and it's scholars, and it's amazing to know that there is no shortage of what you can do with the environment. It's just getting into it. That's the big thing. And to kind of get back on topic, my apologies, with kind of the boiler situation and everything, and with houses and such like that. So you said that the initial cost was expensive, but you said now it has reduced, correct?
Nearly. So we qualify for the government's domestic renewable heat incentive.
Mm-hmm,
so right. That provides financial support for over 7 years. So you basically got to get about 2/3 of the cost back over 7 years, but still, that's quite a long time. So it's just quite an investment. But there's a lot of like new builds in this country now where they're just putting like heat pumps in when they build the house. So the house is actually being kind of created, so it's a bit more of an eco home. And then there's tons of retrofits as well. So I mean, I chatted to the supplier that we use, and they're just flat out with putting in ground source heat pumps for domestic and also commercial properties. So there's a lot of investing going on, which is encouraging, I think.
Definitely. I think it's encouraging, it's enlightening for me personally. And I think that's great. And 7 years is a lot longer than you think. It's but it also feels like it'll go by so quickly in that time. But for the 7 years, where are you at in your 7 years?
We've done 1 year.
1 year.
6 to go. 6 years to go.
6 more to go.
Yeah, but it's quite nice actually. You don't have to. So there's a sensor outside, and basically it detects the temperature outside and automatically turns the heating on inside. So you never have to like set your heating to go on and off at a certain time. It's just kind of constantly on. And that's how it's most effective. And then now we're going to have the kitchen done, I think, underfloor heating as well, because it's more effective with underfloor heating than radiators. So the kitchen should be even warmer.
That's great.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, it was kind of the whole area was a building site for about 3 weeks, and then we just they dug up the entire garden. There was quite a lot of effort, but yeah, it's fantastic to have it in now.
Yeah, I feel like so your house was definitely a shop for a while.
Yeah, exactly. We did it in January last year. So, it didn't matter. The garden was a complete mess because you're not really out in it anyway. So, and then we weren't without heating. I think it was like one day or something. So it was fine. It was quite a sort of seamless process there.
Yeah, that's not bad at all. I think sacrifice one day.
Exactly.
No, I think this is a great discussion though. I love that. And I think it's really interesting. And I'm definitely going to, after this, go and research how prices are for this type of stuff in the US, and to kind of look at, analyzing some of this stuff. So maybe having you back on in the future, we can talk more about this, and also just so that way I know more about this as well, because that's, unfortunately, I don't know as much about this topic, but especially to know that, this kind of came up into discussion with the book and everything that you mentioned, which I did find it online, and I think I might get a copy of it because it sounds fascinating. But I think this is great. But as we kind of near the end of this identity exclusive right here, presented by the Identity Podcast, and of course by Find Your ID NYC, it's great to have you here, Henry. And I know one of the big things that you're doing right now is the Clubhouse.
Oh yes, well I'm quite new to Clubhouse, so I've been doing a few debates with some fellow eco influencers, and I hosted one last Saturday. We were looking about what steps you can take to be more sustainable, and I'm just scratching the surface of Clubhouse. Really, I've just joined a ton of different clubs. I mean, there's just so much going on. I absolutely love this platform. I love the fact that you can just join rooms and you can just request to speak and join the panel, and it's like quite a casual conversation. It's almost like speaking / networking, and you can just make some most incredible people from all around the world at like kind of all levels. And I think that there's so much in terms of like sustainability. There's so many like really smart conversations going on about so many different topics. I joined one talk about like why you quit fast fashion, and they had kind of a handful of like ex-designers that talked about some real like horror stories from the fashion industry, and like they totally quit fast fashion now. I just learned so much. So I think Clubhouse is really good for helping to educate and inspire people to take more sustainable steps and just meet like sort of like-minded eco-conscious people. So I've been spending more time on Clubhouse. I spend a lot of time on Instagram as well, my at eco-friendly Henry, and my Saturday meetups.
Yeah, and I definitely I've been trying to follow your social media when I can, and especially with feeling like I'm living on social media now with all the content posting and stuff like that. But Clubhouse, I will say, Tarek and I have started to get into different apps such as Clubhouse, and another one that's very similar is called Stereo. And Stereo is a great app too. I highly recommend for anyone out there. And we've been doing Saturday chats on Stereo, and it kind of allows us to get, talk about identity and talk about what we talk about on the Identity Podcast, but we can also go farther and talk about different stuff, and we get to interact with listeners a little bit easier on there, which is cool. And people can join us and talk to us and all that, which is really neat. And it also just allows you to expand your platform and your content and put it out there on something else. And so something we've been really talking about is we really talk about environment and like spirituality heavily on Stereo. We really try to talk about that there, because there are a lot of people on Stereo at the moment that are wanting to talk about it and listen to it. So we're able to take what we know and what we learn on a weekly basis and put it out there on Stereo, and then learn new things. And it's really fascinating. And I've frequented Clubhouse occasionally, and to kind of get that same gist and everything, and be able to have the different meetups and the different debates that you're able to have and everything. And I know you kind of mentioned, we were laughing before the show, you were mentioning, Henry, about how you're kind of starting to get used to this whole host factor, right? Like, oh, I have to be the host, and there's all this going on. it's it's definitely something that I can understand what you're feeling.
Yeah, I think you just got to practice, haven't you? I'm not a seasoned host like yourself, Caleb. That's for sure.
Thank you. I don't know if I'm seasoned, but I appreciate the terminology there. But yeah, it's definitely a process. It's something that you have to get used to, constantly hosting and everything, and especially when you have like a large group of people. Anytime we do a conference call for the Identity Podcast, which we will for the Identity Podcast Earth Day special, it's definitely trying to keep your head straight, talking to this person, and then also trying to listen to what this person is saying and everything like that. But I wish you the best with the Clubhouse. I think it's a great thing what you're doing, and I hope you're able to continue to do it and continue to grow, and hopefully, you can expand it even more, do things similar with your Instagram Saturday meetups and everything. Continue to do those, and who knows, maybe one day you're turning it into just a all podcast thing, or maybe before you know it, you're on television doing something like it.
Gosh, I wish. I'll come to you for lessons.
Sounds great. I'll send you my rates after this show.
No problem.
But yeah, go ahead and check out Eco-Friendly Henry on all social media platforms. You can check that out on Instagram. And of course, check out Henry on Clubhouse as well. Definitely check out her different debates that she's doing and her Saturday meetups that she's been doing on Instagram. I was able to tune into it a little bit, I think, this past Saturday after the fact with the time change. And then I see all your posts and everything on Instagram as well. So I've been trying to keep up to date as much as possible, but it's of course. Well, thank you for doing what you're doing. And honestly, it shows, it goes a long way to know that, we as individuals are all doing our part. And I think it's good to know how we can put our voice out there and how we know we need to do our things. And you and I are kind of taking the route, being able to use our voice and being able to collaborate with others and everything. It's a very big thing to be able to do. And you'd be surprised at the people you can reach and the people you can touch by just using your voice. It's really fascinating. But thank you again, Henry, for coming on.
I'm on, and my Clubhouse handle is actually Henrietta Mac, just to mix it up a bit. So Eco-Friendly Henry on Instagram.
Let me put that on here. Sorry, but is that a capital H?
All lowercase.
All lowercase. Well, as we both try to expand our content and our voices and just continue to talk about the environment. So thank you very much.
And you can host.
It's your show, but I'll host.
Sounds fun.
Can't wait. Well, thank you again for coming on, Henry. It's an honor. Once again, you've been listening and watching an Identity exclusive right here featuring Henry McKenzie. I am one of your co-hosts, Caleb. It's an honor to be here every single week, being able to do this. And stay tuned for our Earth Day special. That's right, our Earth Day special on April 21st at 7:15 p.m. Eastern Time. We have a whole load of guests coming on. It's going to be an exciting show. It's going to be fun. It's going to be jam-packed. Cannot wait. So stay tuned for that and check out the Identity exclusive content that will constantly be premiering that entire week. It's going to be a lot of fun, lots of chat on the environment, promoting and relishing in this beautiful thing that we call Earth and that we live on. It's going to be great. But once again, you've been listening and watching the Identity Podcast. Don't forget, we are presented by Find Your ID NYC. Go ahead and like us on all social media platforms at the Identity Podcast. And of course, watch us live every week on YouTube and Twitch at the Identity Podcast and on Facebook for Find Your ID NYC. You can find us on all streaming platforms, our podcast, pretty cool stuff there. And if you want to sponsor us, well, you can do so. All you have to do is email us at press@findyouridnyc.com. Well, it's been great. So don't forget to save the planet, do your part, and have a great one, everyone. Thanks.
Hello and welcome to the Identity Podcast. We're here for an identity exclusive as we continue to celebrate and focus on Earth Day, Earth Week, and Earth Month here in the month of April. It's great to be here. Once again, this is an identity exclusive presented to you by Find Your ID NYC. Don't forget to go ahead and like us on all social media platforms at the Identity Podcast, and you can check us out on all streaming platforms, including Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And of course, if you love the Identity Podcast and want to sponsor us, well, guess what? You can. All you have to do is email us at press@findyouridnyc.com for more information, and we'll get you more details with that as well. Once again, I'm Caleb, one of your co-hosts for the Identity Podcast, and I'm here for this great identity exclusive featuring Jill from Jam Jar Jill. Hello, Jill. How are you?
Hello. Lovely to see you again.
You as well. It's great to have you back on here. It's only been like 2 or 3 weeks since the last time we had you on, but it feels like a lot longer than that.
It does. It feels like a lot has happened in the last 2 weeks. Yeah.
I know life is hectic, life is busy, but I hope things are going well for you, and I hope everything has been good for you. I think to not be mistaken, I think the last time we talked, you said that it was snowing for you that day. Yeah, it's actually vice versa. It's snowing for us today.
Is it really?
Yeah, which is odd because yesterday it was quite warm, and then today it's quite cold and snowing, which goes to show the climate crisis that we're in, right?
It is so crazy. I mean, like today, actually, touch wood, it's been really nice. It's been, well, I don't know how this translates to Fahrenheit, but it's been 18 degrees centigrade, which is kind of like nice mild spring weather. So I feel like spring is finally here. The bulbs are finally coming up, and I've actually got sandals on today for the first time. And I've hung the washing in the garden, so everything's feeling better the last few days, because like I was saying, how it's amazing, isn't it? When the sun shines, everything just seems better.
Literally, it's that vitamin D. It just replenishes your soul. It's so good for you. Yes, I completely agree with you, Jill. And, that's something the past few weeks we've had very spring-like weather, very nice, a little chilly, but just nice, where you can go out with like a light jacket or no jacket and be able to, just walk around. But today, completely the opposite.
It just seems like everything is just extreme now. Everything goes one way, then it goes the other way. It's like a pendulum.
I don't know how it is in the UK, but over the past few years, I feel that we haven't really had a whole lot of spring weather. I feel like it's basically gone from winter to summer in like an instant. Especially here in the Midwest in the United States. I feel like if we have spring, it's only been a week or two. And after that, it's immediately winter, week of spring, summer. And this year, I was like, oh, we're actually getting a spring. And then it's like, oh, but winter 2.0 is back. And it just kind of shows. But to me, here's the thing, when we're discussing a climate crisis, we look at, I think the weather in the United States at the moment is a great description here to an example, because we go from last week having very spring-like weather to today, very chilly, snowy weather. By Thursday, we're supposed to be back up into nice, warm weather, and by the end of the week, it's going to be like summer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like, it just makes your head spin, really. I mean, it's just crazy, because if you talk like a traditional sense of like, I don't know, 20 years ago or something like that, then people would advise you to pack away your winter clothes, like put them up in the loft and get out your summer wardrobe as a strategy for like a wardrobe circulation. Like, you don't need that stuff anymore. Pop it up in the loft and then you can get it out at the end of the season or whatever. No, you can't do anything anymore. You literally have to have every possible scenario out. And when it comes to buying like kids' clothes, it's just insane, because like I have like thicker waterproofs, thinner waterproofs, summer jackets, bomber jackets. Like literally, I'm so glad I get clothes donations. Seriously, because It's just, I'm like, oh, we can get by without the really thick winter coats. That's cool. I've got like 3 other options which I can layer up. Oh no, wait, it's going to snow for like 4 weeks. And then suddenly it's like, please, someone, has anyone else got twins? Luckily, I have a good community. So
that is a good thing.
So it's definitely a blessing.
I feel that it definitely just kind of goes to show with the climate crisis and everything. We've had a few identity exclusives as of recent where we've talked about this as well, and it's really it really is important, right? And I think now more than ever, we're really starting to see the changes and on more on a global scale rather than in just regional scales. We're definitely starting to see more changes and impacts and effects is the word I'm trying to look for, effects from the current climate crisis that we're in. But I think that goes into another great topic that we can briefly discuss, and that's Earth Day, Earth Week. Even what's great about Earth Day, it started in 1970 and then it expanded to Earth Week, and then from there expanded into kind of this Earth Month. And there's a lot of different organizations that look at April as Earth Month. And I know there's a lot of different companies, especially right now with being completely virtual with the pandemic, transitioning into this kind of Earth Week, having different Earth Week events and stuff like that. And so the Identity Podcast said, let's tag along and let's do something like that. So we've been, so this week, lots of fun stuff. On the 21st, we have our Earth Day special. And then on the 22nd, we'll be premiering all of our shows for the pre-recorded exclusive stuff like that, which is really great. So we have the Earth Day and everything. We kind of have this impact that it's had on the world and everything. And I'm kind of curious, how has kind of Earth Day impacted your career and your livelihood as well?
I mean, I think for a very small scale person like me, I was thinking about it as I was hanging out the washing actually, and thinking how I actually see it as it's an excellent excuse for brands to take more of an eco focus for a month. We have, I don't know, as well, different things running throughout the year. There's all sorts of social media tags that you can get on board with. Another one which comes to mind is Secondhand September, which I don't know if that runs in America too, but it's run by Oxfam over here, which is like one of our biggest charities. And to me, it's just like, it's an opportunity to publicize it and to talk about it and to put it in the limelight. But to me, I'm doing this stuff every day. And this is the point, is what we should be doing is we should all be doing our little bits every day. We should be making the choices and being conscious every day. Oh, it's quite sunny outside. It hasn't rained all day. Hey, I'm going to hang my washing in the garden, or like, what can I do? Can I plant something? Can I turn the thermostat down? Can I, these are conscious decisions which we're making every day. But I'm really excited that more and more of these kind of events and these kind of things are publicized, because it just helps with the overall messaging, and it gives opportunities, within the communication space like this podcast as well, for people to have conversations about it. And then the more people talk about it, the more it comes into the mainstream. So I guess that's my kind of thought process on it all.
No, I completely agree with you, Jill, and I think you made a great point, and that's something that we've definitely discussed on the show before, is we're doing the same thing we do every day. And it's like, it's great to have this day and this month and everything to focus on things, but there's definitely this sense of almost like capitalism in the way brands and corporations are working. And it's like, oh, we're going to use this time to really say, hey, we're eco-friendly. But in reality, we're not. We're completely lying to you. And we're actually not at all, like nowhere close.
I mean, there is this whole concept to be like conscious of in the social media space, and people have you heard of greenwashing?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, so it's kind of the companies who's like, oh, I've got a logo with the picture of a turtle on it, but if you buy it for $25, then like 1% will go to a charity, or like I don't know,
even
kind of
that.
you know, and you're just like, oh, you know, are you really eco? You know, you're just printing it on you know, a standard t-shirt.
Exactly.
It's not organic, and you're just using it as an opportunity to get influencers. But what that actually means is you're not going to pay them anything, but you might give them free postage, or do you know what I mean? It's just you've got to watch out for these companies. But then, I mean, it's like, I think we talked about this last time. There's different attitudes about companies like Amazon, and some eco-friendly people would be completely against Amazon as a company. I'm kind of at the mindset that I'd rather support the green choices which they are making rather than not support them at all, because actually, to me, we have an opportunity here to get the big corporates doing the right thing. And for want of a better metaphor, it's almost like training a dog or training a child, or like focus on all the good things they're doing and like really like spend on that, or like, you know, kind of encourage that. And hopefully that will then start to make seeds of changes across the rest of the organization. Much as, you know, Unilever brought out a Colgate, which is apparently eco-friendly. So I immediately bought it because I just thought, well, awesome. You know, I know it's a small step in the right direction, but I'd rather encourage you doing that than, you know, just rant on about all the things which you're not doing, even though, I don't know, I'm about like positivity. So I like to try and focus and encourage people who are doing the right things, and even bigger organizations focus on the good things which they're doing rather than all the bad choices they're making or whatever. Do you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I actually fall into that same category there. You know, I think Amazon is one of those interesting corporations to discuss, because there's a lot of flack going around at the moment as we speak about you know, Jeff Bezos and everything with Amazon and such, and we definitely have this I think there's a kind of fine line in the middle where it's like I can be completely against this or I could be completely for this, and there's not really the sense of like I'm not against it, but I'm not like putting all hands on deck or anything. It's the fact that it's the fact that you do see the positives from it, but you also see negatives, and that's kind of where I think you and I both kind of fall into place. Is like we see the positives, because there are a lot of positives when it comes to Amazon and corporations of, you know, around what Amazon is doing and everything, but there are several negatives, and I do think there are some really good green things Amazon is doing. Obviously they could improve. From what I've heard, it sounds like they are willing to listen. That's one of the first corporations to actually be willing to listen, which is really important. And then from there, it's also just kind of the sketchiness, the sneakiness behind everything, kind of like with all the money as well. Like, where's all this money going? And it's like it could be used for different things, and so there's definitely that fine line there. But I think it's a great topic to kind of, you know, hash into, like thinking, you know, what's good or what's bad about it type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's just generally historically speaking, and I totally get this, but it's part of the whole concept of trying to make a concept like environmentalism mainstream. It's to accept that it's not going to be perfect. You have to drop the perfectionism, because people have busy lives and people have limitations on their budgets and people have a million and one different things going on. So I'm all about like celebrating the small changes which people can make and do. And like for me, Amazon, I mean, I was quite horrified by some of the things my sister who lives in America was talking about, like working conditions in the warehouse. And I don't know how true that is. So I'm not going to go there, but it sounded pretty horrendous. But for example, you can buy bulk buy from them. You can buy eco stuff from them. They've got that green initiative, which I mentioned last time. So you can actually set up your search results so they come up with all the eco stuff first. my experience of their packaging is that 9 times out of 10, it's recyclable, it's cardboard. It's probably like 1 time out of 10 that you might get something in a plastic bubble wrap. I don't know if that's the same for you over there, but you know, the design of that folding cardboard thing to put books in, it's such a clever designed cardboard thing. Do you know the one which like concertinas and folds like that? And I haven't seen any other company using those. So I don't know if they were the ones who developed that or what, but I'm just like, well, why aren't we using that for all book companies? Why are some book companies, you know, still sending stuff out in bubble wrap packages? It's unnecessary, you know, so I'd rather celebrate those sorts of things.
I completely agree with you there, Jill. And yeah, they do that here as well in the United States, and that's one thing that I do enjoy. It's very rare for you to get like the plastic bubble wrap. I think it's if it's something smaller, then they're not going to put it in like a bigger box or anything, which I understand. I would love to see them, you know, maybe smaller cardboard boxes or something in the future to get rid of, to get away from the plastic bubble wrap. But I do appreciate the fact that most of their packages do not come in that. And I think that's a really positive thing to look at it.
For sure.
And they have,
and they put multiple orders in one box as well, which, you know, it sounds like such a simple thing, but it's amazing how many companies don't do it. And like I bought some paint samples from one of our biggest DIY wholesalers who at the time you couldn't go to the store, so I ordered it for home delivery, paid, you know, £4 delivery or something, which again to me, because I've got Prime, I'm like, £4, that's so much money. Like, anyway, and then it arrives and it's like, I'm telling you, like paint samples, like this size,
like barely anything
in boxes, you know, and I got like 3 boxes, and I'm just like this is illogical for your company. This is illogical from the financial perspective, illogical from the environmental perspective. Like, who has decided this is a good idea? Exactly. You know, it would cost you more postage, it costs you more packaging, it costs you, you know, it's just ridiculous. But I think the thing is, you know, as I said last time on, you know, about the supermarket packaging, which I still think has a lot to be desired in a lot of cases. It's about calling them out on it and just saying, come on, guys, you know, really, you can do better. Please do better. You know? Yeah. But I do find, like, I find myself measuring all other mail order against Amazon. I don't know if you do that, because they're so good now with the delivery and they're so good now with the packaging. I'm just like, I actually think that's something to be celebrated. And wouldn't it be great if they taught the other people who are now going mail order because of the pandemic, some of that stuff, if they shared those resources, you know, that would be something which I'd be seriously impressed with, is if they used, you know, their knowledge base and didn't just keep it for themselves, actually encourage other companies to use their packaging. I mean, I don't know if this is happening, to be fair, I know nothing about it, but for example, they could make money selling packaging to companies who want to mail order. Do you know what I mean? And because that is excellent packaging.
That's a really great idea. No, I love that idea. You should you should run with it.
I should write to them.
Hold on one second. I gotta send an important email. But no, I think that's a great idea, actually, Jill. That could, I mean, that's huge. That's huge for any company if they have the opportunity to expand something like that. And I do agree with you. The packaging, the way they package things, how they package things, the materials they're using is exceptional. And I think that's definitely a big pro in the pro and con list of looking at Amazon. And I think from there, it also shows that they are a lot more willing to go green than other corporations and other companies. And I think that right there can also impact kind of the sense of Earth Day, and looking at it is seeing that there are corporations out there that are willing to acknowledge that we should be sustainable on a daily basis, 365 days a year, 24/7, right? Compared to,
like, that's just the standard. That is just the standard. They're setting that as a standard, and that's what you want. That's true corporate sustainability, is actually setting the standard and sticking to it, not just doing it as a fad because it's Earth Month. It's right. But so my question to anyone who's doing any of these things is like, okay, but what are you taking forward from this month?
Exactly. Where are you taking from it? What are you going to do to get better the next month? And what's something that what's something you could do better at? What's something that you wish to be better at? What's something that you maybe just do so well at that you could teach others? Educating, because that's the other thing, is like, not only are we trying to promote this, but we also have to educate, because there's still a lot of people across the globe that maybe don't know the things that are happening, or don't know what to do, the proper ways to do them. And if we can just teach it, and I think what kind of baffles my mind is the fact that we look at corporations and they have all this technology and capability to connect across the globe, and yet they don't necessarily use their connections to the extent that they should, right? They have this ability to teach the world about sustainability, yet they themselves are not acknowledging the fact that they need to be sustainable. And I think that's a whole other thing in itself. But
it's so true. I just think it's just it's an opportunity to take things forward. So can you just bear with me one second?
Yeah, of course.
Right. I'm sorry. I was kind of distracted whilst you were saying what you were saying, but I do 100% agree. I just think these are just the opportunities to take forward concepts and ideas and see how they can make that change going forward. I think, no, I'll let you go anyway.
No, you're too fine, Jill. But no, yeah, I think that's a great segue into looking at sustainable lifestyles and everything, and also what you're doing here. And so with everything that you're trying to do, being an eco-influencer, reaching out to eco-influencers and everything, what are some ongoing projects that you've been up to as of recent?
I mean, I think it's just in every sort of day-to-day life, I'm just spotting things, and every time I do, I'm just promoting it. I mean, one thing, we actually went into the center of town to a mall this week just because it was finally open, so the novelty of it. But I was really excited because I shop mostly secondhand, to go into some high street stores and see that they were clearly thinking about their materials. And I managed to buy some new yoga pants from like one of the main high street brands. And on the label, it said this material has been made from like paper pulp. And I was like, what? It's amazing. Like, it's so cool. And even like the, I'm trying to remember what it's called now. It's like the shiny fabric, which, I mean, it's not my cup of tea, but it's, what like cycle shorts are made out of, that kind of fabric, like nylon-y. But it said it was like a recycled one. And I was like, ooh, this is cool. And then I went into another brand, which, I mean, I really like all the kind of surfer brands and that sort of thing. And there's one called The White Stuff, which I then bought, and like both the tops and the corduroys I bought from there were both organic cotton. And it seems to me that this is really cool. Like, people are really paying attention to this, and the big brands, I'll say for anyone listening in the UK, this is Next, and you're like some Marks and Spencers. I don't know if you've heard of any of these brands, but they're big department stores, and they're equivalent of like Macy's for you or something like that. But they're thinking of organic cotton. They're thinking of recycled fabrics, and I just think that's so something to be celebrated. So it's just really awesome. And I mean, I guess in terms of projects and stuff, I'm on the brink of going full freelance with my virtual assistant work. As of May, I will be. So I'm really excited about that and the opportunities that are there. Hopefully, I'll get the chance to work with some ecopreneurs in that space. That's what I really want to do, and some well-being people and stuff. And I'm just excited about the kind of people I'm working with. And like, for example, one of my clients, I'm supporting her. She's a VA who's been established for sort of 3 years herself. So she's now turning into a virtual business manager. But like, she's now sourcing clients who are in the eco space as well. And she's using a scheme where, you know, you buy trees for every bit of money that comes in. And it's just, I just feel like there's more and more and more opportunities to make green choices for standard people. So that's what I've been really excited about this week.
That's great. I think that's really awesome. Very excited for you. Congratulations. I wish you the best with that. And I think that's a great way to end this identity exclusive as well, on a good positive note.
Sure.
but also just to add on what you were saying, though, I think that's absolutely fascinating, and I love to hear that for you. And I think it's great to know that there are individuals that are doing what you are doing and are able to find some success with it, but also a lot of comfort and commitment with it, right? Because it's something getting into 15, 20 years ago, there really wasn't a whole lot of field for it. I feel like now, especially in the pandemic, there's definitely been a lot bigger calling for it. And I actually know a lot of individuals that are starting to kind of get into the industry and really start to try to plot their soil, right? And make their way and put their roots in the ground and everything. And I think it's great to know that the kind of eco side of things is starting to become its own little industry, and you can do so many things, right? Here I am podcasting about it, and you're able to help ecopreneurs,
business support, but also like doing like the blog and doing working with products. And I just feel like there's more and more and more products coming out as well, and more small businesses starting up. And I think this is the joy of the internet. I think I said it last time as well. Is it gives the individual so much more ability through platforms like Etsy, through platforms like now Instagram is doing a selling piece as well. There's Vinted has just relaunched as well. There's so many things where people are encouraged to sell secondhand, to buy secondhand, to buy eco, and at reasonable prices. So I think it's very encouraging.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's comforting, and it's also just, to me, it makes me happy. It makes me happy to see this and to see some good change out there. It's
Absolutely.
Really great. But thank you again, Jill, for coming on.
Pleasure.
It really is an honor to host you again and to be able to talk to you yet again. And we hope to continue to work with you in the future too.
Absolutely.
And continue to collaborate, and we'll definitely be keeping up to date with everything that you're doing with James J. Jill. So we follow each other, so we'll be staying
absolutely. But, yes, it's a pleasure to work with you again, and look forward to collaborating more in the future.
Definitely, as we continue to celebrate Earth Day every day, right?
Absolutely. Make it a habit.
Exactly.
To be conscious in every decision you make.
Put it on your to-do list. Everything you do, but your virtual calendar. But thanks again, Jill. And once again, you have been listening and watching an identity exclusive presented to you by the Identity Podcast. And of course, Find Your ID NYC. We had this identity exclusive featuring Jam Jar Jill. Jill is a great friend of the Identity Podcast. We're so excited to have her back on to talk about everything and to recap from last time as well as we celebrate Earth Day and, of course, Earth Month. Don't forget to go ahead and follow us on all social media platforms at the Identity Podcast. And you can check out the Identity Podcast, which is available on all streaming platforms, including Spotify and Google Podcasts. And if you love the Identity Podcast and want to sponsor us, well, guess what? You can. All you have to do is email us at press@findyourid.nyc.com, and we'll get back to you with more details. Well, thank you again for listening and watching this Identity exclusive. I am Caleb, one of your co-hosts, and it's been an honor as always. We will catch you next time. Hello, everyone, and welcome to an Identity exclusive. I am Caleb, one of your co-hosts, and it's an honor as always to be here as we get ready and celebrate Earth Day, Earth Week, Earth Month here in the month of April. We decided let's, not only have an Earth Day celebration, at the same time, let's have these identity exclusives to collaborate and collide with this big old Earth Day celebration, and it's a little bit easier on our schedules too. But it's great to be here as always. I'm so grateful. So don't forget, you're listening and watching the Identity Podcast presented to you by Find Your ID NYC. You can check us out on all social media platforms at the Identity Podcast, and you can check out our podcast available on all streaming platforms. And if you love the Identity Podcast and want to sponsor us, well, guess what? You can. All you have to do is email us at press@findyouridnyc.com, and we'll get back to you with more details. Well, as we are here for Going Green, we ask that you help us save the planet and do your part, right? That's the big thing here. And I'm very, very excited to welcome our special guest for today's Identity exclusive, Alina Bassi. Alina, how are you?
Hey, Caleb, I'm good, thank you. It's nice to be back this time in an earlier time frame. So yeah, nice to see you again.
You as well. Thank you again for coming back on. It's great to know that you were willing to come back on because you enjoyed your experience so much, right?
Absolutely.
Well, that's great. But looks like Tarek is on the call here.
What's up, everyone?
What's up, Tarek? We'll go ahead and get
go right on ahead.
Yep. We'll go. We can go ahead and get into things. But again, Alina, you came onto the show back in March. Crazy to think that it's been over a month now. But you were on the show in March, and since then, you were really starting to get things kind of going and climbing with Colliderly Berlin, right? And so with that, what has kind of happened in that realm with your brand and everything since then?
So since we spoke, I mean, it's crazy that it's only been been a month, but for me, it feels like it's been ages because so much has happened. So we finally received our products. We've launched them on the website, but we're still pretty much working on the whole, actual announcement. And we're also raising a crowd investment campaign via Seedrs. So this is a platform where anyone can invest in Colliderly and own a part of our company from as little as £100, euros or dollars. So I think the platform is available in Europe, but also in America. And anyone can sign up and be a part of Colliderly, which is really exciting. So I've been.
How do you do that, by the way? Or is there a website or something?
I can send the link and we can add it to the chat. At the moment, we're in a pre-registration phase, which means that you just sign up with your email address and roughly how much you're thinking of putting in. And then the platform goes live to the public, and then you get to see our performance as well. So you see how much money we're raising and if we get our target, which we hopefully do, or hopefully get overfunded. So I can add the link or I can send it to you after so you can add it.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. So what are the products that you're offering? You mentioned your products and stuff. How's that? Well, how did that development come about?
Yes, it took a really long time. It's been in thought since December, and then yeah, we've been testing everything since then. We're still doing a few tests on different products and different finishes of the products, but we're starting off with eyewear, so really sunglasses and blue light blocking glasses. And blue light blocking glasses are a lot more well known now, I think, ever since COVID started, because you're so much more used to working from home in areas that might not necessarily be very well accustomed to you working from home. You know, your lighting might not be great, like mine probably isn't now. So
yeah, I think so. I don't know if anyone else in the audience still, but yeah, you look fine for sure. So did you just stumble upon this idea, or was this something that you were thinking about for a while? I do think people's eyes need to be protected, especially the fact that we're behind these computers all the time as of late. But yeah.
It's something I've been thinking of for a really long time, actually. And I had tested it maybe a year and a half ago, then wasn't sure. I kind of decided to push it away and focus on just B2B. But now this is our focus. And I mean, I think part of being in a startup is always about pivoting. You'll always try something new. And if one thing doesn't work, you try the next. So this is our next focus. And glasses are usually made from acetate. People don't know that it contains toxic chemicals, and it doesn't make sense to make something new, such as acetate, when you can use your old clothes and wear them in a different way.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to ask. I was like, what's the materials that you're using for the sunglasses? It's old clothes, particularly what, like denim and other clothing items? That's
so we recycle anything containing polyester, cotton, viscose in elastane. So that can be anything from t-shirts to trousers to bed sheets, for example. It's really quite a wide range of textiles that we can take.
Sure. That's awesome. That's super awesome. I remember last time we were talking, like, just for anyone to remember, she basically is a chemical engineer that started and did so many great things. We don't have to do your bio again because it's so illustrious in that sense. But what she's done has taken that passion and now it's giving back to the consumer. So that's so interesting to see that transition. I really think that a lot of entrepreneurs can learn from your ways in a lot of different ways. So, you know, whatever you want to share with us along the way, definitely let us know. So now that you've kind of opened yourself up, it's not necessarily crowdfunding, or are you public? Is that what you were describing, or?
So there's two different things you can do. You can do crowdfunding, which is where you, for example, get people to buy your product beforehand, and then you go ahead and make it. What we're doing is crowd investing, which means that people can invest in Plaidly and own part of the company. So we give away shares, and people can straight away go in, see information about us, find out what we're doing, and then decide if they want to, own part of Plaidly. And the nice thing about Seedrs is that you can also trade those shares on the secondary market. So normally when you're selling a startup, you would have to wait till we sell or we exit or go to IPO to get some money. But in this case, you know, if you decide next year, actually, I needed that €100 back that I put in, you can go and trade it in with someone else. So it's less risk for people who want to invest their money.
Well, listen, I mean, given this social climate, you know, I don't know if you know about Dogecoin and everything that's been going on with, you know, I'm learning more and more that our brands need to have their own currencies and their own ways of forming that, especially since you have such a wonderful mission. Most people want to get involved with that. So I think that's really awesome in that sense that you're actually sharing this vision, this company that you came up with. And just anyone that's going to look back at the old story of the process of how you came up with it and moving away from all the things that were pretty much institutionalized as far as sustainability and other things like that. I think that's definitely an awesome way to kind of go about it. So I guess the other note is, are you online or are you in stores? How are you marketing yourself?
At the moment, online.
Okay.
We are actually partnering with some organizations to offer it in stores, but that probably won't be till next year now.
Yeah, that's super cool.
You just don't know when stores are going to open again.
Yeah, that's the thing I was asking. You know, I'm just giving you the third degree for entrepreneurship, but you're answering and doing all these things with flying colors. So I'm sure our viewers would be so interested. So I was curious to see, have you expanded outside of the German market, or are you specifically focused in Germany?
At the moment, mostly in Europe. So
Mostly
it's
in Europe in general. Okay.
yeah, it's just easier for us to be able to target our local market, and most of our followers are from Germany. And outside of Germany, they're usually from cities. That's something we've noticed. So either from London or from Vienna or from Paris. So I think that's where our target market lies, and we really want to expand into the US next. So I'm really excited when that chance gets to happen. But it's just so difficult at the moment with COVID, because you think, to do that, I do need to at some point be able to travel to the US. I know you can do a lot of things online, but there will be a point where I need to travel to the US. And at the moment, traveling anywhere seems so such a big question mark. So I think that probably won't be till next year now.
I agree. Yeah, there's only one Alina. We definitely need you to just pop up in different places and start your missions in so many different places. I'm sure we'd love to welcome all of your products. I think the best way, just from a little note that I'm thinking of, is getting your products over here and getting those logos out. And people start to figure out, like, oh, so what is Clearly, and just to know that a sustainable fashion alone will actually propel you into so much more. And that's awesome. How is the German market, or the European market rather, accepted your products? What do they think about it? Are they very much more eco-conscious since the last time we spoke?
I think so it's interesting. I'm not sure. It's hard to compare because, of course, I can't really say how it is in the US. I wouldn't have an accurate representation of it. But I can give the example of Berlin versus London, because I'm originally from London and now I've moved to Berlin, and I've noticed that in Germany as a whole, and Berlin in particular perhaps, there's so much more of a movement around sustainability. And I think London is getting there too, but it's still a few years behind. So in Germany, people have been recycling plastic bottles for years, and everything has like a system where it's called a front system. So say, for example, if you drink something from a plastic bottle or even a glass bottle, it has an extra price added to it, and you only get that money back when you return it somewhere. So it's also a nice way of giving to the homeless, because you can put your beer bottle on the floor and then people will pick it up and they can go and get some money. So Germany's been doing this for, 20 or 30 years. And I have not seen that in the UK. I don't think I've seen it in the US when I've traveled there. So I just think that in Germany in particular, they're much more advanced in thinking about these systems already. So it's been easier for me to explain what I do here, and I'm not sure how welcomed it would have been in the UK. Yeah,
that says a lot. I wanted to touch on the ideas of the city versus rural waste management. Have you noticed any differences in the way that more rural communities have disposed of their waste? You mentioned that a lot of cities are more interested, but it might just be because there's more people in those cities to actually jump out into, But other than that, I'm curious, without the access to the metropolitan areas, there are some pockets of land, not only in the countryside in the UK, but in Germany. And I wonder if those markets are being touched, or like, what do you think about much more agricultural communities, that, especially since we go through so much waste just farming alone? So
yeah, it's really difficult to say, to be honest. I think it's an issue everywhere. It's not just cities; it's also in the rural towns. Because if you're living in a more rural space, you most likely have to get around with a car, whereas in the city you don't need a car. So if you think about things and try and weigh them out, in the end, I'm not sure how different both would be. It's also so dependent on the individual, right? So you could be a person who takes loads of low-cost airlines and travels, every weekend to a different country, or in Europe you can go to different countries very, very easily. Right. So if you're that type of individual, you could live in in a rural town or in a city, and it wouldn't make a difference, because your footprint is pretty high considering you're taking a plane every other weekend. Right. And here, because Germany's such a big country, there's a lot of the quickest way sometimes to get around for business travelers is through flying. So there's daily flights from Berlin to Cologne, Berlin to Munich, and you could also drive there, but really the train is the best thing to do. But I do understand that, you know, business travelers sometimes need to be wary of their time. So I think the best thing that COVID did was making meetings digital, because it's so much more common for someone to say, I'm not going to travel for a 1 hour meeting, I'm just going to meet you online.
Right.
It saves time, but it saves CO2 emissions. So I think that's the best thing to have come out in the last few years.
For sure. And your company.
I love the fact that because of being digital, I am able to be so much more flexible. There was one Saturday morning where I was doing Milan Fashion Week, and then I was doing a talk for a business school in Paris, all in the same morning. And in normal terms, when we were able to travel, there's no way I could have been in Germany, Milan, and in Paris all at the same time. So I also feel like it helps you just spread your wings a bit further. So, yeah, hopefully this stays the same.
I agree. I actually do think it's going to probably be locked in for that, you know, especially from the entrepreneurial standpoint. I think so many brands have already set themselves up for, you know, i.e. Public funding, or are creating their own cryptocurrency for whatever they want to do, or just, you know, pushing this agenda forward. I do think the digital world is here to stay. And I think it's so ironic that we're going through this flux of, or an inspiration or uptick of sustainability while we're battling this like big giant that is technology. It's kind of like this coupling that's very interesting. And I think that you provide that bridge, just, you know, being an engineer and knowing how certain things, you know, with factories work and how that all kind of comes together. I think that the biggest thing that I think we can kind of move forward to is probably figuring out more sustainable energy as well, and more ways to kind of create that. But, you know, as far as I'm concerned, I think technology is here to stay, and I think that we can use it to our advantage. Just going back to what you said as well, for spreading your wings, you may not have been able to be in those places before, but guess how much you're showing your colors again. You know, you're showing exactly who you are and your merit in so many different avenues, in so many different ways. Like, you're in the US right now with us, you're back home in London because you still have roots there, and you're in Germany, just from the people that you affect on a daily basis, let alone, like you said, that special day where you're in Milan and all these other places. So I think that the global presence is definitely significant now. Your company's doing some phenomenal stuff. I definitely want to check out some of those products. So definitely let's drop that and link for everyone to take a look at. But I'm curious to see how to see if we move too far into technology and if it will create too much emissions and stuff. So that's kind of how I was thinking about it. So as far as that's concerned, just moving forward, was there any other notes about Clearly that you wanted to share with us?
I think just more in terms of Earth Day, I've been thinking a lot about just where the fashion industry is at the moment. And it's just really sad to see that we're still so far behind in terms of meeting our sustainability targets. And then fashion in particular is just such a whirlwind or whirlpool. And the fact that the fashion industry contributes to 10% of global carbon emissions, just because we feel very, specific about what we want to wear, that's a huge problem to me. And I don't think that this can be solved with just one startup. This has to be solved by everyone making better decisions on what they buy, everyone really thinking about what they're buying, and also lots of startups, government funding, and lots of other large organizations working together on this problem. So we're one tiny little puzzle piece in this huge sustainable fashion movement, but I really hope that this is the way fashion continues to go.
You're on mute, Tarek.
That statistic is alarming. What is it? 10% you said?
Global carbon emissions.
That's insane. That's insane to think about. Wow, I hope you're sharing great information. And you know how I am about this, Alina. Like, please do not humble yourself. And I'm actually gonna follow up a question to that, in a sense. But you're not a tiny puzzle piece. You're doing some phenomenal work. It's just we're just starting up, and you're doing so many different things. So it may not seem like that tree that you just planted is there yet, but I'm sure it's going to continue to grow. But I was going to say that have you been able to partner or network with other organizations that align with your vision in that particular way, whether it be Germany, Europe, or London, or whatever?
In terms of bigger brands, it's been interesting actually. So bigger brands have been really interested in working with us. The issue that we found is that due to COVID, it's been a lot slower than we would have liked.
Mm.
The uptake's just been, it's not a priority for them at the moment. And I do understand that because the fashion industry is going through such a tough time. But at the same time, I don't want sustainability to be, you know, the kind of second or third priority. It still needs to say right up front, along with surviving the COVID crisis. And I actually think that the way to do it is to offer those more sustainable products, because that's where the consumer demand is going. And it was interesting. I read this article that said that what they believe is the future of luxury fashion is actually just in rental. And it makes sense, because why would you sell one really expensive Louis Vuitton handbag and then that person keeps it in their wardrobe forever when it retains such high value? Why don't they just rent it for the time they want to use it and then give it back to Louis Vuitton? So I think this is the future, and we get the chance to speak to huge brands, high end and fast fashion. But we're yet to see a very big organization really taking force and saying, I'm not going to produce any more waste, and we're going to really think about what we do. So there's a long way to go.
Interesting. Yeah.
I mean, and that goes, I think that goes outside of the fashion industry as well, right? That goes just with corporations in general, on a global scale, on a country by country scale. We haven't really had a major corporation fully step up. We've had corporations say different things, or whispers of saying, thinking about things, or trying to reduce certain emissions and stuff. But as far as a really full on, like, let's go sustainable scale, we have not seen that. And to be honest, I thought that maybe we'd see it sooner because of the pandemic and with everything being virtual and technology really rising. But I don't know, because it's not happened yet. So it'll be interesting to see what occurs in the next few years. I think the next 3 to 5 years will be the very important years, and kind of if we don't do something now, there is no turning back. And I know there's a lot of worry that there's no turning back already, and we've already reached to that point. I try to be optimistic. And so I like to think that
that's our mission here, right?
Trying to be optimistic, right? On the Identity Podcast. But we like to think that there is hope, and that there is still time and possibility to turn things around, because I really do think there is. But the only thing is we just have to put this willpower and commitment towards it, right? And we actually had another one of our Identity exclusives. We talked with John Paul Jose from India, and he talked about how we already have all the resources we need to turn back the clock. He said we need willpower and commitment to do it. And he said, I don't know if we'll ever have that in a full global scale. And I just had to take a minute to let it soak, right? Because it was the first time where I knew what he was saying. I had heard what he had been saying. I agree with what he was saying. It was the first time it really hit me, like, wow, we have these resources. Why the heck are we not doing anything with them? Why isn't anything happening with them? And it goes on a very global, corporation scale, this pushback. And also education, not teaching the youth and not teaching the other generations about saving the earth and sustainability and everything. And so it's this whole rooted system that then goes to each industry, right? And we get the industries in music, and we get the industries in food, and then we get fashion. So it hits all industries. And fashion, unfortunately, still happens to be one of the bigger industries that hasn't necessarily, as you said, Alina, fully acclimated to today's society, today's climax, to the point where we're trying to move forward. And yeah, there are smaller brands, there are companies like yours that are doing something and trying to, put this overall notice out there. But on a larger scale, some of your biggest fashion companies have not said anything.
Yeah.
about the matter. And if they have said something, it's like, oh, our packaging when we ship items or something like that will be, yeah.
Line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
10% of all of our products are conscious.
Yeah. Our plastic is wrapped in organic leaves.
Yeah.
But I think that's so funny. But just to say that I was working on some of those like older fashion shows as well, because I work in the entertainment industry, like, or at that particular time I was working on runway and stuff like that, and I did notice that huge dip in the economy right before all this virus stuff actually started happening. So I think it's funny that you're mentioning that fashion has been kind of going through this like weird pivot, and it's like, we're looking for something new, we're looking for something fresh. Why not just change up the sustainability? You know, why not? And I think it's just like you guys said, it's people are already invested into a lot of bad stuff, you know, whether it be landfills or whatever it is, and they own this land. So what are they going to do with all this debt? They're going to just sell it off to someone else. So the other note I was going to say is, like, though the companies may be small, just like clearly your overhead is not as crazy as some of these larger corporations. So what happens is the smaller guys will actually inherit the earth. No pun intended, no Bible verse intended in that. Because most of the time that the corporations were working on fast fashion or just trying to make a quick buck, all of that time they were not focusing on actually sustainable living. So what ends up happening is all of that R&D that they did goes out the window, because no one even wants that stuff anymore, which means that little guys like you become millionaires or whatever it is, and they can't have that. Especially since they're in so much debt. I don't really think it's like a money thing as much as it is, how do they sustain this much bigger behemoth that was fashion before? You know, a lot of people over leveraged, and I saw so many fashion shows get canceled. What was it, like 2018, 2019, around that time, especially in New York City? Yeah, I didn't even. There was a couple of fashion designers that were supposed to, I don't want to name names and stuff, but that were supposed to come to New York and do large shows, and they opted out. And this is before, like I said, all of the stuff that had happened in 2020. So they've been hit like a couple of times at this point as far as what to do and how to make this actually happen. So I think there's a lot of different things that are happening, especially with fashion. I don't know if you're familiar with those like augmented reality, like mirrors and stuff like that. Yeah, so there's a lot of different ways that we're kind of getting this personalized idea of fashion. I also know this guy that does I don't know if you give your measurements either online or something like that, and everything that's made is custom fit to that person and it's sustainable and stuff like that. So it's like, you know, I'm sure it's some very expensive product at this point, but I think we're getting to a point where not only are we like finding stuff that we can wear all the time, we're finding stuff that's very individual to us as well, which is kind of against what you said earlier about renting larger pieces, or maybe renting a tux or a ballroom dress. Rent a Runway is also a company that does that, and they've been thriving quite well. But just as we kind of come into that 30-minute mark, just thrifting too, that's another way to kind of get everyone involved as well. This goes to the idea of secondhand nature, and they say the millennial generation is the most sharing nation in the world, sharing generation in the world. I mean, whether it be Uber, Lyft, you know, now we're doing clothes, which is funny, you know, so I think that the sustainability is the community that we're creating. And unfortunately, corporations and capitalistic, you know, ideals or whatever is pushing those agenda, especially since John is in India, who they're experiencing some of the biggest corporate struggles, like on a big scale. Like they see it right in their face, a lot more than we probably see it, as far as the subtleties of just marketing and the money moves that are being made and political investments. Yeah, my little rant about capitalism as usual, but just to say that we're just happy to have you on. We're happy to have you moving forward with your product. We're definitely going to check in multiple times. You know, you're definitely darling to our identity podcast. What have we been calling it, Caleb? The community garden, the identity community garden. It's something that we come up with, but we're all planting these seeds together in this platform as we grow. And so I think that the more people you reach out through us, through your own sources, whether it be investments or just doing something different, like wearing those glasses. I actually want to ask, what is your favorite product to wear? That's what I wanted to jump
Do
into.
you like rocking glasses?
I had a feeling. I didn't want to assume, but I had a feeling for sure.
It sounds silly, but sometimes wearing eyewear makes you feel like you look more intelligent. And so, yeah.
So
Yeah.
true.
That's actually why I wear lab coats throughout the day. No, I'm joking. No, I definitely feel that. And I think just in that, and this is the last note that I was going to say, just the idea of fashion and the social contracts that we go through on a daily basis has a lot to do with why we as consumers buy what we buy. And I'll just leave that little tagline there for sure, because, you know, people are more respected if you're wearing Givenchy or whatever. You know, if you're wearing something from the 70s, actually bell bottoms probably get a lot of respect nowadays, but that's another thing. Caleb respects those. But yeah, just thrifting. Sometimes those guys are just like, oh, what are those dirty hippies over there doing? They're like, you know, and some of them may have, I know that's the most derogatory thing in the world. I actually identify as one, so that's pretty funny. But you know, what are they doing? Like, why are they wearing oversized shirts with no buttons in them? And like what's going on here? You know, and I think if we can try to change the social pariah of what it may mean to be like smart or fashionable and all these other things, I think that there might be a much global change. So we just got to make it look cool. And you're making it look cool, Alina, and you know that. So I definitely want to check out those glasses. Did you ever give us the link so we can tag that before? Because I know everyone has to go. I appreciate everyone that's been paying attention for our exclusive. For sure.
So the website is something you should have anyway. And then our Seedrs campaign link. So this is if you want to invest in Cladily in particular, then there's basically this pre-reg link, and you go on there and then you get that priority access to our campaign before it goes live.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Super awesome.
Awesome.
Climate crisis. That's later.
Because I'm trying to create a new tab. Anyways, thank you as always for listening and watching an Identity exclusive right here, presented by the Identity Podcast, and of course presented by Find Your ID NYC. It's been lovely to have Alina back with us. As always, I am Caleb, one of your co-hosts, along with my fellow and lovely co-host Tarek. It's been a great, fun little 30 minutes here for an Identity exclusive. And thank you, Lena, again, for coming back on. It's great to hear you again and to be able to hear everything that you are doing in this life with your new brand.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, and have a nice day.
Thank you. You too. Don't forget that you've been listening and watching the Identity exclusive presented to you by the Identity Podcast. You can check us out on all social media platforms. And of course, you can go ahead and listen to our podcast, available on all streaming platforms. If you like the Identity Podcast and you want to sponsor us, well, all you have to do is email us at press@findyourdnyc.com, and we'll get back to you with more details. Well, it's been great. Thank you as always. Stay tuned for more Earth Day, Earth Week, and Earth Month festivities. Lots of things coming up. We'll catch you later. Thank you. Hello and welcome to an Identity exclusive. That's right, an Identity exclusive. We are back as we continue to celebrate Earth Day, Earth Week, and Earth Month. It's a beautiful month. You know, April is just a beautiful month. It's spring weather here in the United States. It's just lovely outside. It's one of my favorite months. I think it's quite underrated, but that's a side note. Anyways, it's great to be here. I am Caleb, one of your co-hosts for the Identity Podcast. Of course, don't forget that you can go ahead and follow us on all social media platforms at Identity Podcast. And you can watch the show every week on Wednesday at 7:15 p.m. Eastern Time via Find Your ID NYC's Facebook page, which we are presented by, and also on the Identity Podcast YouTube and Twitch pages. Don't forget to check out our podcast on all streaming platforms as well. Pretty cool stuff. And if you want to sponsor us, well, you can. All you have to do is email us at press@findyourdnyc.com to do so, and we'll get back to you with more details. Well, as we celebrate Earth Day, Earth Week, and Earth Month, all these amazing things. Well, really, as we celebrate the Earth, right? As we celebrate the Earth, we are here for the Identity Podcast, focusing on the environment throughout February, March, and April, because it needs it, it deserves it. And so that's what we're here for. And I'm so excited to be here once again with a guest that I loved having and actually kicked off our environmental series for the Identity Podcast. And that's none other than John Paul Jost. John, hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. It's nice to meet you again, Caleb.
You as well, virtually, right? It's nice to have this technology. Yeah, it's nice to have the technology and to be able to be here again with you, John. Even despite the time change, I'm glad that we're always able to make it work. And I think I think now is a better time than ever, right?
Yeah, like amidst the lockdown, the pandemic, like we can't have like one-to-one conversation outside, but now it's like within our confined spaces, we could actually connect with everyone. It's also time to find the nature around us, because like random times we will be always busy going for work or school. Now we have plenty of hands at our hands, so we could like just go out or just sit around and then watch what's happening around, just listening to birds. So now it's like we have lots of co-benefits actually from this lockdown law. I would say it's an opportunity for us to connect with nature and explore how we could do more, even if we have a lot of free time or even if we are just sitting idle. Yeah.
I completely agree with you, John. That was very well said. And that's something that I've tried to kind of notice as well during the pandemic and during quarantine and lockdown, and also not only to share to others, but also for myself. And I think that's really important. I think the pandemic has allowed for each of us to kind of realize our voices and our identities, hence the Identity Podcast, and be able to kind of, take a step back from everything in the world and to go outside and to take a walk and listen to the birds, as you said, or plant, go in the garden and plant some flowers or a tree, whatever it may be, taking better care of our earth, right? And that's a big thing. And if we look at statistics throughout the pandemic, especially in North America alone, you can see the different gas emissions and how during most quarantines, when most of a country or continent has been quarantined, the gas emissions like just go down. They plummet, really, is what I'm trying to say. And I think that's really, of course, that's a great thing. But then as things start to, slowly open up more, or as people become more comfortable with being around others or anything like that, you see that those emissions are rising again. And I think at my point, to add on to what you're saying, John, I think it's really important to realize what you are doing to affect the earth, right? And that's something that I was able to kind of sit down during the lockdown and realize for myself, like, how can I better the earth? Like I'm already very health conscious and health minded. I try to be as eco-conscious as possible. I recycle constantly. I try to be a very sustainable human being, right? But there's always more that we can do. Reduce our carbon footprints and trying to just be more of advocates and activists. But I think another thing is with that advocating and being an activist, activism, is that it's not just about us, but also the ones around us, our peers, our loved ones. And I think what you're touching on, John, and as I've tried to expand it here, is that there's this beauty with it, right? Obviously, there's a lot of really horrendous things that have occurred because of the pandemic, and several millions of people affected by this, and just millions of people who have passed away due to COVID-19. And unfortunately, it has put us in the situation today where we are very virtual based. We can't go outside and have a conversation. But as you said, John, there are those little beauties inside that allow us to reflect on some positives from this experience. And one of those is being able to connect more with nature. It's reducing emissions, our footprints. It's being able to connect with people all across the globe in ways that we never, ever thought we could. And it's stuff like that that I think will carry us, you know, post-pandemic. I think it's really important. Sorry, I went on a long rant, but I really do think it's really important. And from there, you know, we have this climate crisis right now, right? And things are not looking the greatest at times. And so how have you kind of been looking at the current climate crisis as of recent, John?
So when it comes to like, so before the pandemic, I was living in the city, New Delhi, and there like we go for class, then go for a climate strike, then come back home. Then so it's a very confined and congested space. So like even if we could do anything, it's like just watching anything or just planting some balcony gardens. So that was very limited space. But due to the pandemic, I had to come back home. So the strikes, it could actually happen online as well. And so it was very much easy, like whatever things I was doing, I could carry on. Additionally, I could do more. So there is a lot of space around this rural area, so I could plan more. Then the kind of place where that's the very thousands of kilometers away from the capital. So it's like the weather is different. We have a lot of rain, so it's very easy to plant. Then even if we want to see a lot of birds or insects, that's very much easy. And also when it comes to it's like to do more of things like reading or watching documentaries, we could actually have a pleasant atmosphere, like it's something like away from the crowd. So it's like we had that opportunity to know more about the crisis. So when we are actually facing a dual crisis, so it's like how to, something like you said, like how to move forward to build back better, because we need to come out of the pandemic and also we need to come out of this climate crisis as well. So it's about how we could reconnect with nature and at the same time addressing both the crises. So even if now it should be like moderate summer here, but it's almost a month like we are receiving continuous rain. So now it's like even daytime it's very dark, like due to the clouds, dark clouds, and the thunder, lightning. So the lightning is and the thunder, it's something like bigger than what we could see a firework. So it's like very scary even to live at this moment here. But sometimes it's something welcoming, like because even in summer we don't plant anything because it's difficult to water, and it's like at least if we plant something we need to water it for like at least 2-3 weeks continuously. But it's like we could plant now, then there is no need of watering it. But something like win-win, scary kind of situation like due to climate crisis. Then looking into the overall situation of India as well, we have COP coming up, and the commitments which each country, including India, make, it's not very strong. So when globally, when we have, like I said, like the idea of build back better, so we already have this blame games. It's like the developed countries polluted more, so they should be doing more, and why should developing countries and underdeveloped countries shrink in terms of economic development? But we already have a lot of things when we say like sustainable development or like a progressive development. We could actually trust nature and we could actually invest green ways. That kind of possible future is or development is anyway possible if we look for both the sides, whether it's green or it's like black. So in black investments like coal or anything, it's like a future that's very grim, and we already have the history of polluting and harmful future that this kind of investment brings in. But when we have this green investment, that's very much promising. So it's like we are not actually taking it very much seriously, and we are just kind of ignoring the fact and the kind of reality we have around. Yeah.
Very well said, John. And I completely agree. In a United States perspective as well. And I think as a global perspective, you mentioned it really well right at the end. about how we're not really going to change anything. We're not really going to ever put this full mindset around it and realizing that there is something looming here threatening us and in our earth and our planet, and there's definitely a lot of danger here, right? And I loved your descriptions of the thunder and lightning, and I can't even imagine that. It must be terrifying, especially fireworks. Those things are crazy. But it's been very interesting for me to kind of analyze the different things happening with the weather throughout the United States over the past few years, especially throughout the pandemic. There's definitely been a reduction of emissions and everything, but at the same time, there's still a constant. The United States is stubborn and still continues to move even despite the pandemic, which I'm sure you've heard. And through that, there's still emissions happening. There's still reason for the climate crisis to continue and to worsen. And I think on a global perspective, I know that a lot of scientists, a lot of activists and advocates, and simply doctors believe that there's still time to reduce certain things and certain statistics when it comes to the climate crisis and when it comes to saving the earth. But it really feels as if we are really getting to that narrow edge, that very thin line, where there really isn't going to be a way back. There's no reversal point.
Yeah, it's actually like we have all the solutions and we all know the problem. So what is causing the crisis? So it's like whatever we have done, it's a complete mistake. So actually we should acknowledge that mistake. But again, if you are committing those things, it's not a mistake anymore. It's some deliberate destruction. So if we, after knowing the impact of what we are going to do or the impact of what our actions are, and if you continue to do more of that, then it's complete disaster. So it's like we are not ready to accept what's happening, what its impact, and its science is very much clear how much changes it could bring, even if it's a 1% rise in emissions or even some point degrees temperature that's being seen around the globe. So that's like very much important to look into all those aspects. So it's like we continue to destroy the forest, we continue to burn more fossil fuels, and more important of that is like building fossil fuel infrastructure. Like even if we are kind of like divesting from fossil fuel or not using them anymore, we could take that step anytime soon. But those investments or infrastructure which we build for fossil fuel industries, that's something which we build and that could last for like decades, like 50 and sometimes even hundreds of years. Those roads, transmission lines, then those railways, and those for those infrastructures, a lot of destructions are being done. If it's a port on the coast or a railway line through the forest or to transmission lines, or even road expansion for movement of these goods. So that this kind of infrastructure, even if it doesn't take for now to stop using coal or fossil fuel, at least for in the next 20 years, it's going to happen. That's something which we should be very much hopeful about. But even at that scale, it's very much irrelevant to continue to move forward the destruction of like full-grown forests, like millions of years old. That will actually take another at least to hundreds of years to recover. And we are building a fossil fuel infrastructure that doesn't even have a lifespan of like 20 years, and it's going to be expired very soon. So it's very much better if we could actually move forward to have a divestment policy from all fossil fuel infrastructure. Then at the same time, we should also cut down all those fossil fuel exploration and use. And that's something which actually should do to cut down emissions. Because even during this pandemic, the emissions have already reached a record level. It's only like the individual emissions has come down. like we are not on the roads, we are not using vehicles. That's why the emissions has come down, but the industrial emissions are always on the high, and it's even now it's very much high. It's like industries continue to emit more, and they torture the consumers and people with their emissions and convert those emissions as carbon footprint to us. And the words like per capita, the kind of emissions that the few people generate through the per capita and carbon footprint that's coming to the individuals. So even if I'm just doing nothing or just sleeping around, then even I have a per capita emission, and even I have a carbon footprint. That's well calculated. The system is like shouldering the emissions to all individuals. At the same time, only a few sections of the society, few rich people are emitting more and more. And when it comes to solutions, we already have solutions a lot, whether it's renewable energy, and especially I would like to highlight, recently I saw Seaspiracy, and I already knew that the help that oceans could do for absorbing carbon, but looking into more the picture about industrial fishing and deep sea trawling, it's completely ravaging the ecosystem in the oceans. Like we have ecosystem on forests in the land as well. We have a very rich biodiversity in the ocean as well. So as we know, oceans are a big source of carbon sink, like more than 90% of carbon being sourced in the ocean for millions of years, and those sedimentary deposits, and also like more than actually the land could sink. As like we know, like more than half of the earth is like water, and majorly the oceans. So it's very much important we actually use that potential of oceans to absorb more and more carbon. So it's like actually we should protect, especially now we know the whaling has begun in Japan, and we have like large sea creatures being killed, especially like sharks for fins. So it's like very much important we actually like, it's like when we already had the solutions, we are now like Elon Musk or anyone, they are like searching for solutions. It's like investing, and 10 years they are searching for technologies, in another 10 years testing those technologies, then another 10 years they are going to implement. So we are losing like 20-25 years of valuable time when we already have all the solutions. It just actually takes only the willpower and commitment to utilize all the solutions, natural solutions that's very much available, and all those scientific solutions as well. That's on our hand. Only thing is like we should execute it, but nothing is being done, because I would say like you said, what's for the United States, even the corporates and the leadership, they are very much stubborn because they doesn't want to move away from the path they are following. They actually want to move as business as usual and just want to hit another crisis point. Yeah.
You know, John, I love it when you talk. You you mentioned some amazing points. Honestly, I wish I could have you on the show every week. Like, wow, that was that was amazing, and I think really insightful for all of our listeners, all of our viewers here. That was really insightful, and I learned so much in just what you said right there too. So thank you, John, really, and thank you everything that you are doing for the Earth as you try to you try to save the planet, and I think it's absolutely amazing what you do, and you said some really big things there, right? You talked about kind of the U.S. and its stubbornness, especially with corporations, and how they aren't ever really going to change. They say they will, or they say that they'll do certain things. And there's just a company, it's escaping my mind the name of it, but there's just a company about a month or two ago that announced that by like 2035, they would be moving to, a certain like carbon neutral type of company. And I'm like, yeah, okay. And it's really interesting to look at some of the things that you talked about. But one thing that I would like to say is I completely agree with you we have all the resources, right? We do. We have all the resources. We have we have the intelligence to get it done. We have the technology. We have it all for it to happen. But it's the willpower. I really like how you said that. It's the willpower, it's the commitment that we're willing to put towards it. And there, of course, there are thousands to hundreds of thousands to millions of people now that are willing to take a step forward and are willing to put the time in, the commitment, the willpower, all this stuff towards it, towards saving the earth, towards the climate crisis and everything. But it's the whole factor of whether or not that will actually happen, because there are over 7 billion people on the planet. There are millions to billions of other people on the planet. Despite the millions that want to do some change, there are billions that maybe don't know about the change, don't have the resources to hear about it, or simply don't care, right? And you mentioned kind of the differences between such as rich people or anything like that, and something that I thought was interesting that you mentioned was just by laying in your bed, you still have a carbon footprint. You're still exposing and permitting, I guess is the word I'm trying to think of these emissions, your carbon footprint. And I think that right there, that little note that you mentioned should wake up anybody in a heartbeat. If you don't know that, then I hope you learned something new. And I hope that makes you change, or makes you think differently about things, and try to practice sustainability and start advocating for the earth and everything, and advocate for a change. And that's the biggest thing, is advocating for a change. We're at a time now where, as you said, just to replenish a forest that was taken down would take roughly 200 years. And that's on the minimum side, right? And as of right now, according to several people throughout the world, throughout the globe, we don't have 200 years for this. We don't have that much time to reverse it, right? And I think so. I hope, from what John is saying and from what I'm saying, if you were listening, if you were watching this Identity Exclusive, we hope that you are starting to wake up, right? And you are starting to hopefully figure out maybe some changes you can make to your life. Now you can help and everything like that. But thank you again, John, for saying that and all that, and just for being you. I'm fascinated with everything that you have to say. It's truly incredible. But I guess on a lighter note, as we continue for the Identity Exclusive here with John Paul Jost, what are some ongoing projects that you've been up to as of recent?
So the most recent one is working at the Youth Ambassador for High Seas Alliance. So it's an organization of like more around 40 organizations coming together for the protection of the ocean. So like we have at other conferences and summits agreements to protect the land, because we know we have destruction of forests, biodiversity. So we always have this kind of conservation around the land is coming up. But at the same time, like I said, we have biodiversity. We have species and ecosystem in the ocean, and who is going to take care of them? As of now, there is nothing being done. We doesn't have any national park in the ocean, or we doesn't have any bioreserve, because there are like millions of species, and like even areas bigger than US, that much area of marine, like we say, reserves that should be protected, because those are the spaces where actually fish, including a lot of marine species, that's actually thriving. And so it's like when we all are dependent on fish, we should actually know from there these fishes are coming from. Because when we go for if on short notes to say if we are going for hunting, we should know like where those creatures are coming from, because if they doesn't have a like a habitat, then there is no place or there is no creature we could hunt, because when they lose the habitat, we are actually losing those species as well. So that's something which I'm also working on along with other young people and these organizations, because there's actually a habitat from where actually those fish species and everything is thriving, and those habitat is under destruction from deep sea mining and trawling. And also, like I said, the potential of oceans to absorb carbon, it's like unimaginable, because it's beyond what our terrestrial bodies or the land could actually sink in. Even I think the technology which industries are trying to come up as carbon capture is not able to tackle the kind of carbon which the oceans could actually sink in. So that much ability those oceans have. So it began like actually after watching Seaspiracy, I was more shackled and kind of more anxious, because like we have like huge potential from the ocean, and it's like I'm actually walking on land, and I can't go to the ocean and do something because it's an international water body and we might get arrested if we go to protect it, and we can't initiate buying ocean and protecting it. We can't do all those things. And so I was wondering what I could do. And then after that, only the opportunity of High Seas Alliance came in, and I was lucky to be part of this project. And now we have regular meetings to bringing what all actions we could do, especially in Asian region, because most of the fish consumption and all those activities, the strategy activities that's happening around the Asian region, and there are like big marine reserves that actually needs to be protected. And the interesting fact is that most of the fish that's being caught or and those are being exported to European countries, something like a rich cuisine. So that those exploited things are being consumed by Europeans a lot, whether it's things produced by slaves or exploitation of nature. So it's something, it's connecting around large justice and climate action. So that's this project is all about. Yeah.
That's really awesome. You know, and I think that's a great way, especially right now with the pandemic, to continue to do something. And what I love, and I know the last time we talked about this as well, John, is you are continuing to put your voice out there, to do something, right? And I think that's what's really important, as we kind of mentioned earlier, is the fact that even despite the pandemic, we're still able to do things, and we're still able to advocate for a better Earth, for a cleaner Earth, for a safer Earth. And I think it's really fascinating what you are working on right now and everything that you joined. So what was kind of the initial moment when you said, I have to do this right now?
So it's like I said, like I come from agriculture family, so it's something like I would say like relation with nature. It's something like an art, or it's part of our identity, because like since being born into this landscape, it's something which we walk on, we see, and something which we do. It's something like a part of us, the kind of agriculture and planting, and it's just observing all those beauty around us. And it's something like an activism step then when we see like the kind of nature which I grew up and the current nature which I loved, it's in danger elsewhere. So we have a fear like those kind of things actually come to us as well, because even the nature which we are living in, that could also be in danger in future. And now that's happening. We have quarries that came up just right behind our house, just few meters away. So that's the kind of danger which I foresaw when I was like 10 or 12 years old. So it's very much difficult when we see like those kind of destruction happening around. So that's a kind of yeah,
Yeah.
destruction, that destruction we see around us. And so when I moved to city for further studies, actually I was missing the nature which I was enjoying, and I was actually living in. So
Mhm.
th- that made me to work with NGOs engaged in conservation and planting trees. Then, so it's like I always had an idea because I won't be able to do all those things alone. Because if we are like 10 activists, then it means like we are just 10 worms just fertilizing the soil. It's something like that. Then we have elephant in the room, like the leaders and the corporates. So their actions means a lot because that's as powerful as like thousands of worms coming together. So among the worms itself, I wanted to be like 10 worms combined because so that's when I began to do more than what I could do. So I began to add on what more I could do. So even if currently I'm engaged in a lot of projects, I'm searching for more because I feel like we could do more because a lot of actions which we need from the corporates or the governments, that's very much minimal, and that's not happening at the scale which we are seeing now. And even there are a lot of young people across the globe, they could do something, but they are not able to do that, being in a patriarchal system or authoritarian regime, or a lot of social issues like war, all those things, they are not able to do more. So it's like if we could actually do something for them as well, and even if we are doing more, it's actually we are representing them as well. If we are sharing their story, we are representing them as well. So that's why I engage in the more and more activities. So along with those international activities, I do rewilding, restoration, then webinars, talks, then photography and sharing stories and writing. So it's like we could actually explore more and more possible ways. So if we are living in a city, also we could actually do more to conserve nature. We could actually revive city landscape. We could rewild city. We could use the waste land for rewilding, and we could have our own garden. We could use solar. We could lead a sustainable lifestyle because always we just go out, we carry a lot of waste, and we consume a lot of things, and we throw it away. And so it's actually we should have these alternatives where we have these reusable bottles, all those things which we could actually use. Then we doesn't need any waste to throw when we are on the move. So that's all part of like we should actually know how to travel sustainably. So it's like when we move, we leave behind a lot of waste behind us. So it's something like a footprint. That's our footprint. So when all the generation like years ago when we used to move, we only had those footprint, but now we have carbon footprint, we have plastic footprint. So all those things which we are leaving behind. So we could actually look forward to take care of all those things. So it's like people in this rural area, it's more like our life itself is an activism because all those things which we are doing is for the nature and it's completely in harmony with nature. And nothing is being recorded and nothing is being telecasted. But when it comes to cities, everything is being telecast because the cities are now beginning to realize their life is in danger. So we have like a lot of things being done in cities to protect the cities, but cities are being expanded and they're attacking the rural areas as well. So it's something like those media and also attention should actually come from. They should come to the rural area because a lot of the impact and all those things are actually happening in the rural area because we are still depending on nature for our survival, livelihood, and everything. So if I move to city, then I have a job or any other activity that is in the industrial space in the material world. So if anything happened to nature, then there is a job, like something like an industrial or that kind of a job. But if something happened to nature, people live independent on nature, then they are going to fall down because their lifestyle, their livelihood, the future, so everything is dependent on nature. That much. That's why I always stress about the importance of just contain the growth we have in urban growth. The urbanization should reach its limit. The industrialization should reach its limit because the land which we have is very much limited, and we actually need to protect like like almost 20% of land for biodiversity, then we need to protect another at least half of it for something like a rural landscape, because we need food to eat. We need to preserve the rural livelihood, culture, then rich traditions. Then, so that's actually need of the time. But it's what we have in something called this climate action is like we're just relying on technologies. Like we are having technologies to capture carbon. We are having technologies to release oxygen. So we are completely relying on technologies. So we are not just ready to accept the nature as it is, and we are not like trusting nature, and we are not considering nature as part of us, and it's the foundation of our life. So we are not seeing that. So that's why it's important, like we should reconnect with nature. So whether it's like observing the creatures around us, or having some garden around us, it's something just the beginning. So it's like people in rural area, they are doing more than what they could do, because it's like they need to have a livelihood as well. So activism or this kind of agriculture or anything, that is not a side business. That's actually part of the business, or that's part of the life. So the people in the cities, actually, they should do more to shift the attention to rural area, because the people in rural area, they're actually suffering from climate crisis, pandemic, ecological destruction, industries. In cities, the impact of climate crisis and all those industrial things are very much happening there as well, but none of the focus are coming to rural area. So we need this shifting focus and this dual landscape. We should focus on both the urban and rural area. So that's why even the kind of activism and the projects which even I'm engaging in, that's on all those round. We should have regional projects, regional activism, as well as we need international and activism and projects. So that's the idea which we should have in this Earth Day, because every day should be an Earth Day. So even people like who are engaged in conservation, for them it's to look back and see what they have achieved through since the moment they knew Earth is important, and it's time to celebrate the relationship they have with the Earth. And for those who have not yet made that relationship with nature, or those who haven't been understood that nature is important, it's time for them to know that nature is important and to join the right side of the history, because then only we could actually have a hopeful future, because hope doesn't come from the industrialized corporates, it's or anything that's around us. Hope is coming from ourselves, because what we are doing, if it's right, we will be actually hopeful, because that right action is going to lead to a like successful and progressive future that is not a mistake, because that is something which to say like we are on the right directions, because when we do something hopeful, then we are doing something for a rightful future. That's the kind of projects, that's the kind of engagements which I have been following throughout the history, because I am hopeful about the future which I want, and actually I should be hopeful first about myself, because when I'm hopeful about myself, then those actions which I am engaging in will be successful, because I know it is going to be fruitful, and that's where we should move forward. Yeah.
That was amazing. Thank you, John. Seriously, thank you so much for coming back on here for an identity exclusive here. It was absolutely incredible to hear you talk and to just hear everything that you're doing right now is fascinating. And I wish you the best of luck with everything. And thank you for everything that you are doing, for everything that you are doing for your land, for India, for your life, your family's life, your friend's life, and also just for this earth. Thank you. It goes a long way, and it means so much. And everyone that we've had on the show during this series has just been absolutely just incredible and inspirational and influential. And you, John, are one of those individuals. And so thank you for inspiring me to do more, for inspiring our listeners and our viewers to do more and to be better. And that's the big thing. I wrote down a few things there because there's a few things there that I know that I could do better at, and I want to be better at, and I will be better at. And it's people like you, John, that inspire change, right? And I love what you said at the end. You know, you are hopeful, and it's great to be hopeful in yourself, because that is the first step for any actions from there. And I think we should be hopeful, right? It's that side of optimism of human beings that we have. And I think if we stay optimistic and we stay hopeful, we can change things. We can make this make everything right now much better and a better place and save the earth, right? And so thank you again, John, for coming on the show. It truly is an honor to always have you on. It really is great to have you on, John. It's a lot of fun. Don't forget to check out John's social media at John Paul Jose. This has been an Identity exclusive featuring John Paul Jose. I'm again one of your co-hosts, Caleb, and wow, it's crazy to think that we are here. We are Earth Week, Earth Month. It's right here, right in front of us. But something that John mentioned is that every day should be Earth Day, right? Every day should be Earth Day, and that right there is very important. And so we're going to live like that. We're going to talk about that. We're going to strive for that perspective right here on the Identity Podcast from here on out. I promise you that. But thank you as always for tuning in to an Identity exclusive right here by the Identity Podcast. Once again, this is the Identity Podcast presented by Find Your ID NYC. Don't forget to go ahead and check us out on all social media platforms at the Identity Podcast. And of course, you can also check out our podcast available on all streaming platforms. And if you want to sponsor us, well, you can. All you have to do is email us at press@findyouridnyc.com, and we'll get back to you with more details with that. So don't forget, save the planet, do your part. Thank you as always. See you later.